Welcome back everyone to the Anarchy Analysis Prediction Series. We're live for week 2 of the Swiss stage at the World Championship. Repping the world's gear today as we've got best of 3s on the table and I don't want to play favourites. We've got 6 matchups on the table, all with varying amounts of success and also failure involved in them. So we're going to be getting into these best of 3s, starting with our 2 matchups of the week. Our first matchup sees G2 Esports taking on T1. It's a matchup that stood the test of times. The two kind of gods of their region, G2, the best team Europe has ever produced, versus arguably the best team in the world for many years in T1. And this is going to be a pretty explosive matchup. G2 have a lot to prove at this World Championship, having dominated Europe while kind of struggling in early game scenarios. The opposition, T1, they've had a struggling summer, barely making it to the World Championship through regional playoffs, and here at the Championship, the form isn't at that upper echelon of T1 that we expect at the World Championships, losing out in crucial matchups and arguably not performing to the success these players want to be at. Now, the opposite side of things, G2, they're in a similar boat, kind of losing it out in the HLE series by a few mistakes in the early game, costing them, and then realistically from there, HLE kind of pushed them and took the game off of G2. And the game after it, they look night and day far better than what we were kind of expecting from them up against Weibo. And considering how messy that game ended up being, there's kind of some, there's some ups and downs to how both these teams are playing at this World Championship. Now, we're breaking this one down because we want to see peak League of Legends, and it's in Europe, of course, so peak League of Legends has to come from Europe. So we're going to be giving G2 a nice little breakdown. We've seen them all year, how they've developed and what strats they performed, but not to this caliber of opposition. No offense to anyone in the LEC, but we've kind of seen how Fnatic have done at this World Championship, and they've struggled. MDK are already gone. So this team has faced quite a lot of weak opposition all year. MSI, G2 didn't show up. Worlds, they need to. And this is probably their biggest test, considering they need to make it out of the Swiss stage to not have a third year of not making it to the quarterfinals. There's a lot on the line for both these two teams, and T1 want to defend their crown. G2 want to prove that Europe is not a doomed region, and this matchup is gonna be down to how these two teams show up. Personally speaking, I want to see that mid lane matchup. It's where we will be highlighting and kind of putting our focus on. Now, whether or not we get that high caliber of performance, it's up to the players. But in a best of series, these two teams will take it pretty much to one another and look to perform, which is why you've got to look at this realistically. And to be honest, G2 typically struggle against T1, and I think that they're going to struggle to 1. I think G2 will at least get 1, but Owner's been performing quite well at this World Championships. He's certainly setting up T1 to find success, while Faker's been kind of quiet, not finding his normal footing. So as such, that is why I've got to go with a T1 win, considering the fact that G2 have struggled in a couple of matchups. And while they're not necessarily trying new things, they're certainly not going for the comfort, the things that won them so many trophies in Europe. So that's why I kind of have to give the win to the LCK 4th seed. My second matchup of the week sees Hanwha Life Esports taking on FlyQuest. Now, the LCS 1st seed has had a bit of a rough road, I think. Considering the fact that not many people expected them to be where they are right now, I think that they stylistically have got kind of lucky with their matchups. Just taking a look at it, PSG in their second match, and Damwon Kia in their first. Of the teams that are at Worlds, I think they've had the easiest Swiss stage out of most, unless you got MDK. Then, yeah, you had a pretty easy Swiss stage. To be honest here, I think that Fly haven't shown as much than what they've shown in the regular LCS. Ivan has been a comfort pick for them. And it's just allowed for Bwipo to be an idiot. I'm not saying he's a bad player or an idiot in general, but on the Rift, he's just able to walk into opponents and not care. And it's disrespectful, but when the opposition can't punish because the Ivan shielding is so strong, the Renekton's healing is also very strong, then it just makes it so... It makes drafting against FlyQuest pretty easy. You just ban them 2 picks, and then you're fine. The issue is, Fly haven't been tested on their pool yet. And once they get tested, that's when I think teams will be able to beat them. A team that likes to test the opponents is HLE, the LCK champions. This team looks good, I'll be honest. Looking at how they've performed at Worlds this year, they're certainly on an upper echelon. Sure, they didn't win out when they wanted to advance, but it doesn't matter. They're here and now. They've got a couple of chances at least to do so, and going up against probably of the remaining teams the easiest team in the 2 wins bracket. I think that this should be where we see HLE advance to the quarters. Simple as that. I think this will be a 2-0 for the Korean side, and it will kind of give some... What's the word I'm looking for? It's not hindsight or retrospect. It gives us a better understanding of how the LCS sits as a region, going up against arguably the strongest team in the world right now. So, 1st seed versus 1st seed, yeah, there should be some, what I call, stakes on this matchup, which is why I want to cover it, just so that we can understand how the LCS matches up against the other major regions. And in my personal opinion, not very well. Let's get out of the matches of the week and enter the regularly scheduled games. The first one on LOL Esports is D plus Kia taking on Top Esports. It's an interesting matchup to me, and this is because D plus Kia have come into this World Championship beating the second seed of Europe, and beating the first seed of the LCS. Sure, they lost quite badly to LNG, but considering the fact that Top have kind of struggled on their own side, also beating Fnatic, but here, D plus Gear have the second chance of making it out of the Swiss stage. Do I think that this matchup favors them? Not in the slightest, considering the fact that Top is a higher seed than LNG. But I think this will be a certainly more closely contested matchup. And I think it's going in favor of Top in a 2-1 fashion. But realistically speaking, what have we seen from Top at this World Championship that has been out of their wheelhouse from when they were last at Worlds I remember in 2020 with Jackie Love. That was the takeover meta. Personally speaking, there's been nothing different in their style. 369 just playing Renekton, or tanks Top, Rumble if he gets it. Nothing's really changed in their style, and it's easy to suss them out. Fnatic tried punishing 369, but he isn't the person you punish. You need to punish the carries. And if you don't do that, you lose, which Fnatic did. So unless DK can shut down Jackie Love, Top will run riot. Simple as that. And I think that it's going to be a very hard job, considering how Lucid and Kingan have kind of been playing at this World, or in their last matchup, it was very loosey-goosey, and they lost and got punished for it. So that's why I kind of have to go with a Top esports win here. Oh yeah, 2-1. We are halfway through as we enter BLG versus PSG. Let's break this one down. BLG surprising a lot of people with how they performed, losing out in a couple of matchups here, and in a battle with PSG. This is a, how do I word this, struggle bus matchup. I personally think that this is closer than people expect it on paper. Do I think BLG will win? Absolutely, that's an easy 2-0 in my mind. Do I think PSG have the magic to upset them? Yeah, absolutely. Considering PSG had a lot to prove at this World Championship, and they have done so tenfold, knocking out other competition and realistically showing up when it matters most. I think most people or analysts didn't expect both GAM and PSG, of the teams that were promoted out of the play-in stage, to be the best performing ones, considering both Pain and MDK are gone after last weekend. I think here, these two teams, they've done phenomenal. It's another good year for the VCS and PCS. Do I think that it showcases some weaknesses in the, quote, major regions? Absolutely. But what we have to say is, these two teams on paper, which we're breaking down, it's going to be a bloodbath. I'm just looking at that mid lane matchup. Knight versus Maple? Sign me up to that every day. You've got such good players on the Rift. It's a shame though that I don't think PCS will match up to the LPL in just how quickly they push the tempo. And that's why I've got to go with a BLG 2-0. And finally, for the predictable games right now, we've got two more that happen on Saturday. Fnatic versus Weibo kicks us off in a best of 3. Oh boy. We saw how hectic Weibo made the G2 series or matchup that ended in a G2 win. I think if we get the Fnatic that showed up this week, it's an easy stomp for Weibo, and I'm just going to predict a 2-0. If it's the Fnatic we saw pushing G2 in the LEC, this is a lot closer of a matchup. Fnatic last week were just like desperate, and they didn't need to be. They were trying to create plays when they shouldn't be creating plays. They were getting caught out, over pushing, and just generally playing like animals. This wasn't the Fnatic we've seen all year, and it showed. Which is why coming into this Weibo game, if you make one bad step, one misplay, they will punish and take you out of Worlds. Because this is a do or die situation, let's be honest. And I don't want another year where only one European team makes it out, and that be G2 for once. I want 2 European teams into quarters, meet up in semis after both smashing their opponents, getting 1 European team in finals. And there you go. A European champion in London winning Worlds. That's a hypothetical that will never happen, unfortunately, with how both teams are showing up here. I think, let's be honest, this matchup is going to be a 2-1. But, who do I give the extra game to? It's going to come down to that third game. It's going to be a late game team fight that Fnatic win and take it out the clutches of the LPL. It's hard to believe this, but I'm going Fnatic 2-1. I just don't know why, but in a best of series, Fnatic are gonna crush it and just zip, done, beat the LPL, take out at least one of their teams at the World Championship, and yeah, that's that. Let's move into our last game. Said last game is Team Liquid Honda taking on GAM Esports. We've had a look at Team Liquid already at the World Championship, and it was a struggle bus of a matchup. It was arguably their weakest performance, and they're in a do-or-die matchup against GAM. This team also is in a struggle bus here in Worlds. I literally just watched about 5 minutes before doing these recordings a video that was them versus MDK and the one team fight where everyone just misses all their ultis or goes in and then immediately goes out. That game looked painful considering I didn't watch it live. I personally think that this one should be an interesting matchup because I think TL in the matchup after the one we broke down showed up phenomenally, and while they're in a situation where they're on the verge of being eliminated, I think they've performed better than GAM so far. I think that this will be a 2-1 victory to TL, though I do feel GAM time could be a continuing, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this. These matchups have been insane at the World Championship so far. Europe underperforming, North America doing better than average, and then LPL LCK just dominates. That's just how it's been at Worlds for so many years now. I can only really comment on what our region does because that's the one I follow, and with me following that, it's time to walk out the door and follow something else. Oh boy. Maybe I follow Axis UK and get tickets to the show. Maybe I could go to the World Finals. Hashtag I've signed up for the second time. With it. Anyway, back on track. Thank you very much for joining me. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like down below. Comment your predictions as well. Love to read them. Even if I don't comment or respond, I do read them. And with it, see you guys next time. For quarters, peace out.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big